Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another Creative Sim for the Disney Save. Today we'll be working on some Hercules townies. This will include the Muses and two characters that I probably should have included in the previous Hercules Creative Sim, which will be Hercules' adoptive parents, the ones that are human and he ends up staying with when he is on Earth. Those two will be living in separate households. The Muses will be one household, the Hercules household that lives in the mansion is another, and then his parents will be a townie household. But I just kind of wanted to include all the townies together in one Hercules themed video. There are a few more Hercules townies that I'll be doing later on, but they kind of go with some builds that I have coming up, so I decided to kind of break it off this way and pair them. Now I will be doing all 5 of the Muses. I'm not even going to try and pretend to say that I can pronounce all of their names. I feel very comfortable with certain ones and then others I just don't. So I will not be even trying or butchering it live for you guys, but as well as Hercules' 2 parents, they have even worse names as far as me attempting to pronounce them, so I will not be doing that. They're in the video though. I usually try to keep them in the clips. And then just like the last Creative Sim I did, something I have been trying out recently that a lot of you seem to really enjoy is doing some clips at the end of the Creative Sim showcasing the Sims in my actual save file, and more importantly within a build that makes a lot of sense to them. So at the end you'll get some bonus clips of the Muses interacting with the new arts center that's going into the save file called Gospel Truth, which I built in the last speed build. If you missed that, it is in the Disney Save playlist, linked down below. Our first muse here is the one that is a little bit shorter. She is the muse of comedy. I tried to, of course, coordinate all of their traits and their aspirations with anything relating to their godhood. None of the muses will be spellcasters. The reason I've decided to do this is because, as some of you have correctly guessed, one of the big households in the huge build that's coming up for Hercules is Mount Olympus. I'll be doing Mount Olympus as well as 8 Sims that are living in that household that are all Greek gods. And then I'm also doing a townie household with I think 6 more Sims that are additional like lower Greek gods. Lots and lots of bonus family members and friends. I will be unwinding that family tree a little bit just so that it makes sense for the Sims and it's a little bit more Disneyified. But those Sims will all be spellcasters because they're like the gods of Olympus, and they'll all be very bright and colorful and have some weird skin tones and look a lot like how they do in the film, which is very mystical and magical. These ladies are not only more normal looking, but they're not really shown to be using too much magic. The only thing that I can see them kind of having and using is like the ability to maybe do a little bit of shape shifting, possibly a little bit of transporting here and there, and it just didn't seem like enough to make them spellcasters in comparison to some of the other Sims that I'm going to be creating, which will largely be spellcasters, and a lot of them at that. I'll be adding a decent amount of new spellcasters to the save with a lot of additional reward traits and some really like buffed and overpowered godlike Sims, similar to how I did Hades back in Forgotten Hollow. He has a lot of special reward traits that make it so he can basically never die. He doesn't get like scared of anything. He can't really die to temperature. He doesn't really need to eat, things like that. He is a god. And since I'll be adding so many more that are kind of like at that level, in comparison, the muses don't necessarily have all of that, and they don't need to either. So they instead will have some reward traits and some bonus things that kind of elevate their characters a little bit, especially when it comes to their individual interests. And for example, my first muse there, who is the one of comedy, she can have some additional bonus traits that are usually saved for rewards and things like that, where it makes it so your sim is more alluring, or they're better at telling jokes, or other sims find them really funny very naturally. There are tons and tons of special bonus traits and reward traits that you can add to sims. So I'll be doing that in place of them being spellcasters. They just don't do like enough magic usage for me to justify adding more spellcasters on top of all the ones that we'll be getting very soon. Just as a side note as well, before anybody corrects me, I want to just mention that that the Muses are listed according to, I think, a song in Hercules as the goddesses of the arts. So that is what I'm going off of per the movie. However, in different variations and retellings of Greek mythology, they have been listed as goddesses, patrons, siblings of Hercules, not siblings of Hercules, and their individual godhood, like what they are the goddess of, can also sometimes vary. So I'm just going off of what information I was able to find through various Disney wikis and things, and this is what we're going with. So our very first one, again, the goddess of comedy. The one I am currently creating is the goddess of history. Rather than making her just straight up a genius, which I hate that trait if I'm honest with you, it gets overused and I try specifically not to use it in my own save. And I feel like having some kind of academic leaning qualities can inherently just make you like a genius, and that's really the only trait that there is to pair with it. But I tried to go a different direction with her and make her more of like a scholar, a book reader, a bookkeeper. So she has kind of those sort of interests and traits. And then additionally, just to talk about it for a moment, trying to find 5 white dresses that fit all of these ladies and really felt like they could all fit together in a set. Like the 5 dresses were cohesive as a group. They all were like the right shades of white, because even amongst different packs, white between 2 different expansion packs can be 2 different shades of white, really. And some of the older and base game dresses, early pack dresses, they're not really up to quality in comparison to the newer packs dresses. But I also didn't want to put all of them in like straight up wedding dresses, and I was thinking about the cut of each of their dress, like who has straps, who is strapless, one shoulder, who is kind of cinched at the waist, who has something a little bit more long and flowy. And between all of them, even in the video, you'll see me kind of like playing around with their different dresses. The only ones that I was absolutely for sure about were the very first muse and the very last one. I had found something in the catalog pretty early on that I was happy with for those 2, and then the 3 in the middle, I kind of moved them around, trying to piece together what I felt like hopefully was a good choice for each of them. Having seen them in game, I will say that I'm happy enough with them, but I would really like for just a couple more dresses. Of course, I'm always like hoping that if we get some kind of medieval expansion, we will get really big ball gowns or nice big full dresses. I don't know if that would have helped me in this instance, but I've been thinking about a lot of future Disney characters, particularly like Cinderella has been very much on my mind recently, and I don't even know what dress in the CAS catalog I'm going to put her in. It's a little bit disappointing. Like, we don't have anything super full and blue and really like perfect for her character. All that to say, I'm happy enough with where I ended off with these guys for now. I will be keeping my eye out on future packs and going back and updating as I usually do to see if we get anything a little bit better, especially for Calliope. She's kind of like the main muse, the one that you'll think of, and the one I'm currently doing on screen. When you think of them, she's like head muse, and she has this really flowy dress that has connections between like different points of her arms and elbows. It's very much in style for like Greece, so it makes a lot of sense. It's exactly what you would picture for the time period, and it's not something we have anything even close to in the game, so I'm kind of like holding my breath for something for her later on that's a little bit better, because I do feel like of all 5 dresses, she was the one I was the least happy with, because it just doesn't do her like the full justice. But it is a little bit flowy, it's got the cinched in waist, it's got a little bit of additions of gold, which some of the other muses do not have, kind of indicating maybe that she is more of a leader between all of them. Calliope is the muse of epic poetry, so I've leaned more into making her a writer, and in some places she's also listed as the oldest between all of them. They are all young adults. I really just didn't like how they looked as adults. I did start with the first one being an adult sim, but they just look too young and youthful and really like particular. There was really not a wrinkle in sight, so making them adult sims adds like lines around the mouth, and it just aged them to a point that I felt like was beyond what was shown in Hercules. And also they're gods and goddesses, so when you think about it, they don't really age, and they probably can like pick sort of how they look or present, or like how seemingly old they look. At least that's my personal headcanon. A lot of them show the ability to transform their physical appearance or their shape, so I feel like they look exactly how they would want to, and most people would prefer to look a little bit younger. All that to say, that is sort of like the reasoning why I decided to make them some young adults, even though I feel like they probably do lean a little bit more towards adults. I wish that The Sims would allow you to just sort of like age up characters without drastically changing their physical appearance, because to be honest, some people just don't look like that in the later stages of their life, and it makes sometimes, in particular, like elder Sims and adult Sims, I do feel this way, look a little bit too much like one another. I guess there does have to be a way for the eye to be able to recognize the various life stages, but I do wish I could take some of the wrinkles away on my adult Sims when they definitely do not need it. Next up is the Muse of Tragedy. She is one of the most difficult to interpret into actual skills and aspirations, but the way that I sort of took it was more towards acting, doing plays, musicals, tragedy in sort of like an entertainment sense, and maybe being a little bit more interested in gossip and other Sims and like the drama of life. She is the only Muse that seems to wear some kind of makeup, although it's always a little bit difficult to tell exactly what's going on because they're shown very, I would say somewhat infrequently in Hercules, but they also sometimes take on the shape and the color of other things, so you don't actually get a good feel of what they look like except for the opening scene of the film, which I went over many times for various reasons, and I could see that she in particular had like sort of a leaner looking face and a lot of makeup on, or more so than the other girls, so I did kind of lean into that. Now there was something that was really back and forth for me as far as their physical appearance throughout this. I did not know whether or not to give them brown or black hair. I really think you can make an argument either way. There's this thing that Disney does, particularly with like black or very dark brown hair, where they will color it sort of an in-between color, or they'll choose black and then they outline the hair in a different color, almost giving the illusion of like highlights or trying to tell you as the viewer this hair is more of a blue toned or cool toned black, or this is a warm tone brown or a deeper color, but it's not going to show perfectly well if we do it with black and then white outline or black on black outline. It just doesn't work artistically, so they end up taking these darker colors and outlining them in lighter colors, and it makes it like almost questionable, like what is the hair color? So I asked my patrons, and one of them said that we could potentially do some of them with black hair. In the video today, I have done them all with the darkest shade of brown hair that the game has available, but if you believe that they should have black, please let me know down below. Maybe we can do half of them black, half of them brown haired, or maybe we just do all of them black haired. Like, definitely let me know what you think about it, because I was very torn on this. Ultimately, because of the way that it's outlined in the movie is color graded, I decided to go with the darkest brown, but I do feel that the true color is probably a deep dark brown that we do not have in game. And then for the last Muse, she is the one that's very slender and to me looks a bit younger than the other ones. She's described as having frizzy hair, but she kind of just has like very curly hair. I liked this hairstyle for her in particular because I've never used it and it has a lot of curls coming off the front, so it gives the same sort of idea as like a more wild curly hair, still in an updo. And she is the Muse of poetry and dancing, so she will be our dance machine and have artistic traits that are leaning more towards that, as well as high skills when it comes to all of these characters. They'll be each individually focused more on using the skills that are for whatever goes with their godhood. Someone in a previous video had commented as well that they felt like they would make really good choices to use in the entertainment and PC slots, which is such a great idea that I had not considered until that comment. So again, thank you guys for your comments, because they do truly help. Like, even if you're not a patron, there's so many comments that are like burned into my brain as like, I'm going to do that later or implement that later. I try my best not to forget and really like include everyone regardless of the circumstance, so I do appreciate it. And then lastly, a separate household, Hercules' adoptive parents. He has a mother and father. They are elder Sims. They're shown as younger earlier in the film, and when they actually get Hercules delivered as a baby and sort of raising him, they have lighter hair colors. They are seemingly like just not quite as old, and then when he is going through the events of the storyline, they are very clearly supposed to be a bit older. His wife has stark white hair, and they even like the dad has this hunched over look to him where his shoulders are kind of like leaning forward and dragging into himself. It very similar to how the elder Sims in the game are designed, so that fits so perfectly. And I don't even get really a chance to do too many elder Sims for parents of the main Disney characters. It's rare enough to have parents, let alone have them be like maybe a little bit older. I think Tiana's mom is an elder, and I believe Ariel's dad is also an elder, but for the most part, if we do have parents, they tend to be leaning more towards just straight up adults, and that's what a lot of them will be for the future. So it's always nice to add a few more elders to the save, especially some townies. They are both supposed to be, I believe, farmers in some regard, and they have outfits that are just very particular to like ancient Greece, like a toga, things that you would think of if you thought of the time period. So that was really tough in the CAS catalog. You can turn off the masculine and feminine filters and then have the ability to look through literally everything in the game and see if anything will work well. In particular, I did that for the dad to try and see if I could find something in place of a toga, but they don't always fit the body type correctly, even though it's available for you to use either for either sim, and that's very nice. And I think that's something that they had added like later on in the life of the Sims. It's a nice addition, but when they make these items, they're meant to like fit the body of a feminine leaning sim or a masculine leaning sim. They don't always like look correct. They'll have shadows and shading in places that they're not supposed to, or don't make sense according to the body type that you've chosen for that sim. And so a lot of the pieces, regardless of the fact that you can use them for either, they tend to look funny. Some of them don't, and that's really great. So I always give it a go and see if we can go through and find something. And I actually think I ended up landing on a Star Wars outfit for Hercules' father, and I think it's a feminine outfit. It is a full body outfit and it's very layered. It would be really hot, if I'm honest, for a farmer that lives in Greece. It would just be a little bit too many layers for the heat that he would be dealing with working outside. He'd probably want something with a few less shirts, but it color-wise and sort of the look and style of it and trying to pick something that's not super modern worked really, really well for his character. Star Wars is sort of a go-to for me when I'm trying to find something that doesn't look modern and doesn't fit into any like one specific category, but has more of that fantasy leaning feel. Unfortunately, just because of like the amount of Disney movies that don't take place in modern times, it eliminates so much of the catalog, like any type of graphic t-shirts or certain cuts of tops or even certain materials and fabrics that just don't make a lot of sense. I try my best to stay away from those, and even back when I didn't used to always do that, like I would kind of ignore it for certain outfit choices, such as the athletic outfit, which is always a really tough one for these older timeline Sims to pick something out. I have gone back since the Disney Save 2.0 and really updated and tried to remove anything that doesn't make sense to the best of my ability. I do slide some more modern options in here and there because I think that maybe some people won't really care either way, and I do like to provide options, especially when some of the outfits just fit the character way too well to ignore. An important note about Hercules' parents, you could definitely move them into the Hercules mansion. That household, like I've said many times, is a little bit small for a mansion. There are multiple bedrooms that are empty inside, so you could easily move these two in there if you wanted to have a few additional Sims. I was talking, I think in the last video or with patrons or something, about where they ultimately ended up, and somebody pointed out to me that they believe Hercules might have had another house built for them. I found a lot of screenshots of like their little village house put right next to a fancy mansion. So their house is either located right next to Hercules' mansion, or Hercules had a nicer home built for them off of the backside of their former home. Either way, it's completely up to you. If you want to add 2 more characters and make the house a little bit bigger, you certainly can. And if not, when you see them in the Disney Save, they will be genetically correctly linked to Hercules, at least through friendships and like sort of adoptiveness, if I can get away with it. I don't know if a Sim can have like a true parent, which would be Zeus and Hera, and have adoptive parents, so I'll have to mess around with that a little bit. And if not, they will at least know Hercules. So it should be easy enough to find them and interact with them, and they're not really that big a part in the movie. They're very briefly shown in the beginning and kind of towards the end when everything gets resolved. I think there's one scene where they don't even speak to each other and are sort of shown in the background of that. I was even surprised to learn that they have names, which I stole from Disney Wiki. Very nice whenever I don't have to come up with a name on my own. Hercules' mother was the hardest in the entire video to dress. She wears a darker brown, specifically cut, like sort of long longer dress. It has thicker straps. It's more like thin. It looks like something that would be very comfortable in hotter weather. And then she has her hair in an updo that is wrapped. So again, immediately knowing that she has like a hair accessory, that's almost always going to be a no starter. We don't have very many in the game, and when we do, the hair accessories are often tied to the hair themselves, which limits what colors you can pick and that sort of a thing. So rather than worrying about the hair wrap, I just decided to do a appropriate looking updo that looks like it could potentially be how she styles her hair before she uses the hair wrap. And then I just needed to find a less modern looking brown dress that was an appropriate length for elders. The dress that worked, I think, the best for her character was truly the one that I had already previously put Meg in. But because Meg and his mother wearing the same exact dress kind of gave me the ick, I decided I had to find something else. And just as I had issues in Meg's video trying to find purple dresses, I learned that we don't have very many brown choices. So that was a little bit of a tough one. I found the dress I ultimately ended up going with in the video. It's a Strangerville dress. So it's very, very random, but it's a good length for her. It's thinner. It looks like something good for the heat. And it came in a couple of brown swatches that paired well with her little sandals and things. Like I mentioned, the next video you can expect to see from me is the big Mount Olympus video. It'll be a speed build, probably very, very long. I'm already like deep into it and it's taking me forever. Could be a little bit of a delay in between videos because of that, but it will be out before you know it. I can't wait to show it to you guys. It's really one of my favorites in a long time, very magical looking, and the household that will be coming after that will be the characters that live inside of it. So I hope that you guys are excited for all of that. Let me know what you thought of the Muses and Hercules parents in the comment section down below. If you'd like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below or the one at the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you all in the next one.